The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome to my State of Mind. I am Dan York. Well, we've had quite the week. Geez, how many weeks have we said that in a row? But the impeachment trial is certainly something that is hopefully grabbed the attention of America. It is such a mind blower to think that, hey, an impeachment trial is a secondary news consideration. But if America has been watching, America, I'm thinking, would want Donald Trump convicted. Now, 56% of Americans reportedly in polls say they do anyway. The numbers are going to change, and that base is going to shrink. Republicans are actually peeling off left and right in states, including in Rhode Island, from voter registration in the party. But despite the stalwart, base-driven senators who say that this has been a waste of time or we know all this already, the chronology of events that have been articulated by Democrats this week ought to lead you to a much clearer understanding of the president's formidable role in igniting this fire at the Capitol. You're seeing this on the weekend. I'm recording this on Thursday morning, so we don't know, based on how I'm recording this right now, exactly how this thing is going to turn out in terms of the timeline. But I will tell you, it's a trauma for America that can't be ignored regardless of this vote. In the meantime, Governor Raimondo says she's sticking around.
My day to day hasn't changed that much. And I owe it to the people of Rhode Island to do that, to work as hard as I can until the moment I'm no longer the governor. That's what I'm doing, and that's what I intend to do.
I will tell you, it is outrageous that the governor has combined a lack of availability, notwithstanding this interview where she was caught outside the State House, not being present in terms of her interactive leadership that has marked her COVID leadership prior to being named the nominee for the Secretary of Commerce, but that she refuses to go until such time as she's fully confirmed and leaves us in a vacuum of leadership is a disgrace and a terrible leave on her legacy. And I can't figure out why nobody seems to be able to get that through to her. One day at a time. Tonight, our main thrust is going to be the questions, the bond questions. Some big number, more than $400 million we're being asked to borrow. We'll talk about that and dig in on questions 1 and 7 this evening. Stay with us. Welcome back to my State of Mind. We are going to take a look at the bond questions tonight. Now listen, early voting has already begun, and you have through March 1st to do the early voting on these 7 bond questions totaling more than $400 million. You are allowed to in-person vote the traditional way on March 2nd. That is Election Day. I will tell you, it is a disgrace that this legislature pushed this out to March. They hid under the desks and COVID stress in 2020, gave the governor emergency authorization, and didn't do their jobs. And so they didn't get into a deadline. They didn't make a deadline to line up these questions for us, which we could have answered in November. So now you get a bullet vote. Those who are going to vote on this most likely will support and approve. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't. It's just that it's been handled very, very poorly by this legislature. In the meantime, Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea makes an excuse for the legislature on this. And notwithstanding that, our first conversation will be with Frank Sanchez, the president of Rhode Island College, and his need for some $100 million for all 3 colleges. And then we'll talk to Gavin Black from Moran Shipping at Quonset about their need for $60 million in investments at the port.
Usually we would have had these questions at the end of the November ballot, but because of the economic uncertainties that the pandemic brought about, the General Assembly and the governor saw it fit to be more cautious and make sure that when we issue these bonds, we can actually pay for them. And so they wanted to wait till a little bit later on. So the result of those conversations is that we have our own standalone bond election for these statewide bonds, totaling $400 million. and that your elected leadership believes, we can deal with.
And so our fine president of Rhode Island College, remember when he was a rookie, and now he's now he. Let me tell you something, Dr. Frank Sanchez. You're never from Rhode Island until about 20 years in. I'm just telling you, we're all carpet baggers.
I have 15 more years then to go, Dan.
But as I opined at the beginning of the show, I'm not happy with this bond placement by the legislature to take a real powder during 2020 and to leave it lingering out here in March all by itself. Notwithstanding, there are serious issues and there are serious needs. And with a high percentage of approval from the voters, I'm guessing that the voters will feel pretty good about this. But we do need to at least explain what it is that we're talking about here. And more than $100 million in education money. A lot of people some voters may just be getting fatigued. Every time I turn around in an election, I'm dumping tens of millions of dollars in borrowing into our educational institutions. I've made my speeches before about how A, important that is, B, what kind of jewels and economy drivers URI, RIC, and CCRI, but you're here to make the speech yourself. In general, if you will, why are you bullish on $107 million of borrowing for the schools?
No, absolutely. Particularly in a lot of Rhode Islanders are feeling it with today's economy. We're about at 8.1% unemployment. We have a $500 million deficit. Most higher wage jobs we know require a college degree or certificate. And if we're going to prepare Rhode Islanders for these type of jobs in areas like science and technology, and in this bond, the visual and graphic arts, we must invest in our public universities and our colleges. And so this is certainly an opportunity for Rhode Island to kind of have our own stimulus, right? Let's get Rhode Islanders back to work by approving these bonds and help move the state forward as well within their higher education institutions.
Well, it's interesting you say that because this was not a design as a COVID response. This was something that's been in the planning stages for quite some time and actually should have been scheduled. Was scheduled to be on the November ballot, but because the legislature didn't convene in time to format the entire slew of 7 questions in bonding, it's been postponed until March.
Yeah.
Just sketch out real quick, if you can. URI has some needs, CCRI has some needs, and then we'll dig into the Clark Science Project, which is the dominant investment at Rhode Island College. Talk to me about what the needs are, if you could.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, it's a $107.3 million capital investment in the higher ed. Very briefly, URI portion will be about $57.3 million, and they're going to design, renovate, and construct a new facility and infrastructure for their Fine Arts Center on the Kingston campus. The Fine Arts Center supports about 5,000 students annually and traditionally hosts about 50,000 visitors every year. At CCRI, their portion is about $12 million, and that's going to provide funding to design and renovate support services and classroom spaces on the Knight and Flanagan campuses. They want to create some one-stop shop services on the Knight and Flanagan campuses so that students have a central location for admissions, advising, career services, financial aid. For us, our portion is about $38 million, and we want to completely modernize and expand our Clark Science Building, which is our primary science building. Every single student since 1962 on campus goes through this building, whether it's for their gen eds, they're majoring in one of the physical sciences, or they're taking courses to supplement majors like medical imaging, health education, nursing. And so we want to renovate this building, and in the end, it will renovate about 60,000 square feet for a modern state-of-the-art science building on the campus. And I got to tell you, Dan, that's one thing I've heard for sure for the 5 years I've been here from the business community, is they want to see more degrees in science and technology, engineering and mathematics. And so we're trying to be responsive, certainly to the business community, and not to mention, the sciences and engineering and technology occupations are growing in the state. The Department of Labor said about 13% growth between 2014 and 2024. All other occupations are only growing about 7.8%.
Well, I just think, look, URIs, think big. We do. You got to continue to invest there. I mean, we've done engineering and a whole bunch of things there that are just already proving to be return on investment. I have to tell you, the poor kids at CCRI go to a dungeon. That building, those buildings are just aesthetically displeasing, and so any renovations that MedQs can get over there at CCRI, I think is wholly worth it, especially since we're committed to this promise of free tuition for 2 years for qualified students at CCRI. And Rick, which is, I'm preaching to the choir and not loving the one I'm with. I'm telling you, I've always felt that Rhode Island College is the most hidden investment, jewel of investment we have in Rhode Island. The success in education and in nursing and in social, the social sciences world, I think has already been established. Yeah. For you guys to actually, carve out a new frontier and a pedigree in the science world will flush this thing out in a big way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, part of the expansion, there's going to be about 16,000 square feet expanded, and that's going to help create space for our quickly growing and one of the largest in the region medical imaging programs, and among the top quality anywhere in the nation. Just this past year, we hit 100% pass rate on the national exam for our bachelor's program in medical imaging. So absolutely, this space is going to not only provide, or this bond isn't only going to provide space for medical imaging, but we've talked on this show a couple of times about our amazing nursing, School of Nursing program. Again, among the highest quality, and 96% pass rate this past year. Environmental studies, health education, but it's the laboratories as well that every single student at RIC, as part of their gen eds, need to experience. And we just gotta upgrade this building. It hasn't been touched for about 59 years or so.
Wow. So I only have a half a minute or so here. So for the person who's just like fed up over the idea that they just keep asking me for more money, help them think that through for 30 seconds here.
Sure. So I would say this is opportunity to have Rhode Island's own kind of stimulus on our own. Let's help Rhode Islanders get back to work in some meaningful projects. And this isn't about the higher ed bond, but all the bonds. And it opens up doors certainly to get Rhode Islanders back to work, but more importantly, invest in our higher education institutions so that we can continue to move Rhode Island forward.
All right, Dr. Frank Sanchez from Rhode Island College, who are overdue to dig in a little bit more to both the academic and project work going on.
Let's do it.
At Rhode Island College. In the meantime, when we come back, Gavin Black from Moran Shipping at Quonset as we dig into question 7 here on Dan York State of Mind. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And so now we switch to question 7, which is $60 million of your discretion on investment in Quonset. Gavin Black is with Moran Shipping, which is a legacy business, began in Providence some 80 years ago, and he's vice president, general counsel, and part of the family, and been there a couple of decades, and certainly understands everything that's at stake here. Gavin, thank you for joining me. Appreciate it.
Dan, thank you for having me on. It's great to be here.
Notwithstanding my disgust with the General Assembly in postponing these bond questions to March and leaving them lingering out here for a singular vote by the electorate, Quonset has just been an incredible success story as a quasi-government agency, but the now 5 figures worth of jobs that are at Quonset, the incredible commerce. It's this hidden space where if you go down 403 or 402 or whatever the heck it is, and all of a sudden you end up that everybody knows the place for the air show. But if you want your kids to see something cool, have them come down when the cars are coming off the boat, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It's amazing to see.
So tell me about your company's role in that. Then we'll talk about why the funds are so necessary.
Sure, Dan. I'm a shipping man. We're ship agents, and the way to think of us is as kind of the general contractor of a port call. So clients, which could be a ship owner or charter or sometimes both, will engage us to arrange the expedient disport and legal disposition of cargo entering any ports in the United States. We're a national organization. We handle over 20,000 port movements a year in all the major ports in the country. But as you mentioned, Rhode Island is our home and our headquarters. And there's such a rich talent pool of maritime expertise in Rhode Island that we love being here. And we have a nice, thriving port with a lot of diversified cargo that works kind of in harmony, which is poised to capture even more cargo with the development of offshore wind right below us. So exciting times for the port. I think it's, like you said, it's been a long-standing economic engine for the state. And, you know, our other economic engines, our other traditional strengths have honestly and sadly been kind of decimated by the pandemic. The hospitality industry, the tourism, hotel, restaurants. We just can't expect, while those guys are fighting for their lives, to get a lot of tax revenue right now from there. But ports has been strong. Rhode Island has been strong. The Ro-Ros, which is a roll-on, roll-off carrier, which acts as like a floating parking garage to bring in all these autos. It's over 200 ships this year. So we're busier than ever down at Quonset. It's a great problem to have, but we're actually running out of space, and space is one of Quonset's great assets as a port, attracting cargo. So I think that, you know, expanding is definitely in our future. So every marina, dock, commercial space with any kind of water depth from, I would say, Woods Hole to Bridgeport, Connecticut, is being evaluated right now. I have direct knowledge of that, working with developers, by offshore wind.
Sure. What specifically are we voting on when we say yes to a $60 million bond? How will that money be spent?
Right, so it's two pieces. And first, what we need to do is we need to protect that great natural asset in our seaport, our deep water port, right off the Marine Superhighway. And at Quonset specifically, what that means is reinforcing Pier 2, which is a World War II pier, creating an additional terminal, Pier 5, because we're that busy that we want to bring in more Ro-Ro carriers along with the components for the offshore wind and some of the specialized project cargo that Quonset's been able to capture. We're actually, we're running out of space down there, and it's a good problem to have. So we need to build a new terminal. We need to reinforce the pier. We need to protect our water depth, which is the single most attractive feature for bringing in ships. Is, you know, Narragansett Bay has amazing water depth. We're the envy of our nearby ports with our natural up to 40-foot water depth to bring in vessels, and you have to constantly and diligently maintain that water depth dredging. So part of that money will go into the maintenance dredging around the pier to maintain that water depth to make us competitive to bring in these larger Ro-Ro carriers.
So it sounds to me that without these upgrades, so we're talking about reinforcing what we have and adding to what we're doing down there. I guess if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards, right?
That's right. It's a very competitive industry. It's a global trade network. The principles that bring cargo into ports evaluate us as a whole. So you need to have all the right attributes. You need to have expert sea pilots, which we have in the Northeast Marine pilots. You need to be close from pilot station to terminal. That transit time matters. I think a pilot getting to Quonset from where the pilot picks it up south of Newport is about 3 hours, which is a fraction of the time it is down in Baltimore or the Chesapeake Bay. So that makes us much more attractive than some of those larger ports to bring in a vessel because we're that close. Our water depth is important, like I said before, and our shoreside space capacity is important, along with shoreside maritime expertise like McAllister Towing, our stevedore companies, the Watersons up in Providence are doing great things. That, you know, Davisville and Proudport can boast that they're the only terminals to install an offshore wind turbine in the Western Hemisphere so far, working together.
So I guess some folks might ask, well, why can't Marine and Shipping do this? You know, why can't you borrow your own money? Or the dynamics of the quasi-public Quonset apparatus and the companies and the tier one, as we call it, companies, the major companies that are down there, sometimes confuses people as to, you know, who's investing in, you know, what is the taxpayer's responsibility. So as people make a decision on this vote,
Right.
Just give me a minute as, you know, to separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of investment and responsibility for that.
Right. So the investment is what we're asking for with the $20 million in Port of Davisville and $40 million for the to expand on that program. And but what happens is you get a much higher private investment once you're teed up with that public investment. So Quonset is kind of what I used to call like the terminal of dreams. If you build it, they will come. You know, if we did reinforce those piers and we did put in intermodal transport connectivity, and we do have the maritime expertise with all the stevedoring capacity and the ship pilotage and the towing, that we would capture more cargo. And when I started in my career, say 20 years ago, you know, Davisville, you mentioned this whole hidden Highway 403 out to this great land, and it was nothing when I started to go out there. You'd get one car ship a month. You'd go down, I think, what was called like Devil's Foot Road. There were no lights on that road, 20 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you just be in this large vacant lot with a car ship sitting there. Now, we at Moran handle almost one a day. So it already has proven that kind of investment has led to over 200 businesses entering the park, a record-breaking year after year of ship volume at the piers. So it comes back in tax revenue and in jobs, and it's the major driving force, or one of them, in our Rhode Island economy. All
right. Well, there you go. There's your rough sketch. Gavin, thank you for the time. Good luck with the vote, and continue your good work. You know, helping the economy in Rhode Island. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Dan.
All right. We'll be right back with the final word here on My State of Mind Statements. So I hope you understand a little bit more about questions 1 and 7. There are questions 2 through 6 that still need your review. Make sure that you take a look, do a little reading and study before you vote on March 2nd, or in early voting up through March 2nd. You have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO.